It's the Brad and John Show.
It's the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 22nd of May. It's a Thursday, 2025. We're coming up on, well, this is the C block, which means we start around 7:45. I'm late this morning. Okay, John, personal little thing. I want to thank Sean Hutto, H-U-T-T-O. If you need a mortgage, he's the guy to go to. Great guy. I've been to he has a thing. It's, I guess, yesterday was the third Wednesday of the month. Does that sound right? Third Wednesday of the month?
Yeah, it was.
He has a thing called Drinks and Links. It's at the Post Bar. Really nice place out in Lake St. Louis. In matter of fact, it's on Ronald Reagan Drive. So what better place could you have a place to go to? He has this thing at third Wednesday of the month. It's free. You can go there. It's called Drinks and Links, and it's a chance for you to network with people. And I've been there 3 or 4 times now. And what's interesting is I'm promoting the Westplex Chamber of Commerce, and what's interesting about it is last night there were several members of the Westplex Chamber of Commerce who were there. So
no way, Brad. That's awesome.
Yes. So we're moving onward and upward. Okay. Yesterday, and I don't know, you're really good at this. You probably already have the text and all that kind of stuff. The story there in front of you. Yesterday, we had Wesley Bell on 97.1. Did you hear about this?
No. Who was he on Reardon?
No, he was on Annie Frey's show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they preface this by saying that they had many times tried to get Cori Bush on 97.1, and of course, she never showed up. Now, Annie, I say, treated him with kid gloves. And they went through this whole preamble about, we're going to have Wesley Bell on. And you know, they talked about the whole thing with Cori Bush and never wanting to come on with them. And apparently, Wesley had agreed to do this, but it almost sounded like he said, I only want to talk about the storm situation in my district, which obviously North St. Louis and parts of North County, and I believe University City's his district as well too. Isn't that his first congressional? Isn't that U City and places like that?
Yeah, you're right. And you're right. They were hit, and that he represents the U City area. Right.
And before she had him on, she said right up front, which I thought was really good of her. She said, if this would have been with Cori Bush when she was still in office, we would have reached out to her, and she almost assuredly would have said no, and we would probably have gone to a congressman not from that district. We probably would call it Bob Onder or who would be one of the other
Ann
ones?
Wagner.
Ann Wagner or something like that, and essentially say, hey, tell us about, and that really wasn't her district. Well, they did a nice interview with him, and he was very forthcoming. But, John, I'm going to make money, and maybe you'll appreciate this, maybe you won't. I'm going to make money I'm going to sell a course online which people should buy. And the course is, yes, and the other thing they talked about, the fact that he did his interview on Zoom, and they are streaming their show, and apparently they have video switcher down there at at 97.1 KFTK, where they can bring up not only the cameras in the studio, put it on their stream, but they can also put up the output of their stream, of their Zoom streams. In other words, you could hear him on the radio, but you actually see him if you were watching the stream on YouTube. Okay?
Yeah, that's awesome. They do a great job with video. 97.1 is awesome at that.
They really do. Okay. My course I'm going to teach is proper microphone technique if you have a Zoom call or if you're doing anything like this.
And what was Wesley Bell doing wrong, Brad?
He sounded like he was in a pickle barrel. And the crazy thing about this is there was a time when you go back 30, 40 years ago, if you wanted to get good broadcast quality audio, it's going to cost you $300, $400, $500 for a good microphone and a processor and things like that. Okay, you can go to freaking Guitar Center. And matter of fact, for many years, matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I bought a new microphone like maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And one of my friends, Bruce Horlick, who is a voiceover aficionado, one day he calls me up and he says, Brad, I heard that you've got to use it. You're using a new microphone on your commercials. I go, yeah, I am, Bruce. And he goes, is it a Neumann? It is a he mentions all these high-end microphones. I go, no, Bruce, I'm going to disappoint you. It's a Sterling. And he says, a Sterling? What is a Sterling? I go, it's the house brand at Guitar Center. And he goes, well, it must be one of their high-end microphones. I go, Bruce, it cost me $25. And he's going like, what? What? A $25 microphone? The point I'm making is It sounds like garbage when you, and the crazy thing is, you hear this from time to time. People are on their Zoom calls. Buy a decent, stupid microphone. Don't use the goofy one that's built into the camera that you stick on top of your monitor.
Yeah, that's just a bare bones minimum thing, right? That's a stock version.
Right, and don't record in your bathroom, you know? I mean, it's like super noisy, well, not noisy, but it's got so much reverb and it just sounds like garbage. You know, it would be like, and the reason I can't believe that there isn't somebody on his staff who's listening to this interview and goes, wow, you know, Wesley did a great job, but God, his microphone sounded like crap. We need to work on that. No, because they don't get it. But yet what's interesting is more and more people who you will hear are doing interviews. I mean, like, perfect example. I mean, like Mr. Wonderful, okay? He's got a complete, matter of fact, it's actually sort of funny. Have you ever seen the pictures of Mr. Wonderful in his home studio where he does all these video interviews?
No, I haven't seen that.
Do you remember what's the name of the guy who was here in St. Louis? Patrick Emery. Do you remember Patrick Emery?
Yeah, he was the old-timey guy was he KMOV?
Yeah, well, he wasn't old-timey at the time. He was Mr. Stud Muffin at the time. He was the young, good-looking guy.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the 70s, and very few people listening to this were around in the 70s.
Right, and a friend of mine worked at Channel 4 and told me the stories about, can I go off script just for a minute here?
Yeah, please do, Brad.
I can tell you some interesting stories, firsthand stories of very well-known TV personalities that you've probably watched on TV for a long time. This is not currently, but back in the day. But what happened between their 6 and 10 o'clock newscasts? And my friend Harry, I won't mention his last name, but people know exactly what I'm talking about. Harry talked about the fact that Patrick Emery had some adoring fans who were female. And one of his adoring fans was a very rich lady who had a Rolls Royce. And she would routinely show up at like 7 o'clock, and she would park her Rolls Royce on one of the levels of the Channel 4 parking garage, which was not very well used. There was some empty spaces up there. And Patrick Emery and this lady from Ladue in a Rolls Royce would get a little friendly in the back of the Rolls Royce between the 6 and 10 o'clock newscasts, okay? That was Patrick Emery, okay? He ultimately left St. Louis and ultimately became a CNN guy for a while, and he bounced around the country. And then my friend Gary Whitaker brought him back here to St. Louis when they put news back on Channel 30 for a while. They had their own news department. And Gary would tell the stories about how Patrick would have his nice suit coat on, he'd have his nice tie, he'd have his nice shirt, and he'd have jogging shorts and flip-flops on because they only shot him from the waist up.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say he would have his Rolls Royce friend below the desk.
No, it wasn't that. But if you've seen the pictures of Mr. Wonderful, he's got this really nice set. He's got a great microphone. He's got a backdrop behind him, and he's in his shorts. You know, so he's dressed.
Yeah.
He's dressed with. So he gets it. He gets it. Wesley, somebody in your staff, hire somebody who is a good podcast person. Buy a good microphone. And nowadays you can buy, I don't know if you've seen these things or not. The things have gotten very popular. DJI has one and Hollyland has one. They're these little portable microphones. They look like a really small pack of cigarettes. And you just clip it onto your shirt, and they sound really good. They're like, and it's a wireless system, and for like $120, you get 2 microphones. So you can do like a 2-person interview. You get 3 pieces. You get 2 microphones, one for, person A, person B, and then there's a little receiver that clips onto your phone. You plug it into the jack on your phone, and you get broadcast quality audio. It's like, dude, get some money and buy a stupid microphone, okay?
Well, that's a good piece of advice to Wesley's communication staff, Brad. And thanks for that tip. I just added, in the time that you were delivering that talk, I just added the Annie Frey clip to my website so folks can find it today.
Okay, and he was very good, and they complimented him. But you know what? I listened enough to Annie Frey where it didn't sound like the regular Annie Frey. It sounded like Annie Frey talking to the owner of the company. Yes, sir. Yes.
So you're saying that your complaint is that she was too deferential to Wesley Bell and she should have pushed him on more things.
Well, I think she felt she was walking on thin ice, and she didn't want to, put any gotcha questions to him because he'll go, well, I'll never talk with him again, that kind of thing. And I get it. I get to the point where if you have somebody that you want to, have on your show, and especially because of the fact that their studio is in his district. They're right there on Olive, just west of Tucker, and that's their congressional person. And I would imagine there's some of the people that 97.1 I think live in the city, so that's their dude. That's their guy. And I get it. You don't necessarily want to pull the pin on a hand grenade and roll it in his door and say, okay, I'm going to blow you up this time, and I know you'll never be back. But she just sounded like a little bit too much like, I don't want to offend him. I want to be super nice. I want to be to the point where, and I'm not making fun of her.
But Brad, also, wouldn't it be fair to say that, like, you could criticize Bob Onder for not living in the district in which he's running, and you could criticize him and the Freedom Caucus for a lot of things, and then we have him on the show, and you're very polite and kind to him, right?
We've never had him on the show, have we? Have we ever had Bob Onder on the show?
Yeah, Brad, and you decided you ask him questions like, your sister's also a doctor. Your parents have to be so proud. What's it like to be both a doctor and to be a lawmaker? Like, you wouldn't press him on anything because you're being polite and he's on the show. So I'm just saying that Annie was polite to Wesley Bell, and as a credit to Wesley Bell's communication staff, they probably, as you indicated, they probably set the ground rules of, hey, listen, we're not going to talk about Medicaid or the budget. We don't want to argue about that stuff with you. We're here to talk about storm damage, and Annie's going to respect that.
John, I have to disagree with you. I asked Bob Onder about why he didn't get together with Brad Bradshaw when he put together his own marijuana law, and
that's right, because they're both attorneys and doctors,
right? And they could have been co-czars. I remember I asked him about that. Don't you remember? No,
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, you really pressed him on that. And when Bill Eigel's on, you don't criticize the Freedom Caucus. You just ask Bill open-ended questions and let him talk. I think that's a courteous thing to do. If your gimmick is not confrontation and being obnoxious, you're probably going to just be deferential to a member of Congress, right?
Hold on a minute now. I did bring up the infamous Bill Eigel incident where I got thrown out of his fundraiser. Okay, remember it?
You did. That's true. That is a funny incident that, of course, Bill did not remember and has no recollection of. But.
Right, which one of his underlings did. But if I was trying to be super nice to Bill, should we call him right now and see if he's going in a good mood?
No, absolutely not. Let's let Bill be. What we could do is, Brad, maybe you could have Mike Elam on and then press him about why I3 isn't advertising on your station.
I will give Mike credit. He gave me the name of his lady, and they're headquartered out of Peoria, who does the advertising. And I did contact her, and matter of fact, she came up in my thing just the other day as my little tickle file that I'm supposed to contact her again. But I sent a proposal, and she says, I'll only do it for half that price. And I go, I can't go that low. And I've never heard from her since. I've tried to reach out to her.
Well, but that's fair, right?
Well, it's not fair in the respect that she could have negotiated back with me. And I said, no, I can't do half. And she could have said, well, how about I'll pay 66% of what you proposed to me? Okay, that's a deal, right? But instead.
Speaking of great radio deals, shout out to Dave Green. How about KLIS coming on June 1st, right, Brad?
What's it called again? KLIS?
Yeah, KLIS, the Lou Information System.
Really? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, KLIS. It's going to be on 590, the former KFNS. And it's he announced a heck of a lineup. I think he announced it on Tuesday. And he has a number of radio veterans from the St. Louis area, a really diverse crew of folks who will be leading a new talk radio station here. Dave Green points out that talk radio in St. Louis has become stale. And now people are finally going to have something interesting to listen to.
John, do you think we're stale?
I don't think we are, but I mean, Dave obviously doesn't know who you are or hasn't listened to our show. We wouldn't expect him to. And Dave's policy, if you look through all of his materials, and folks can find out more about his station by looking, just Google KLIS and Dave Green. There's an E at the end of Green. And Dave's point is his shows will have no politics, Brad. The shows, he will host no politics shows on his new KLIS 590.
What are they going to talk about, John?
They're going to talk about sports. They're going to talk some about current events. and they're going to talk about local culture. They're going to talk about local business. And if you look at the lineup of folks, I don't have it directly in front of me right now, Brad, but if you look at the lineup, there's a lot of veteran radio people that he's going to have on to talk about St. Louis culture, business, sports, everything except for politics.
Hold on a minute. Let me look here something real
Isn't
quick.
it great to have a businessman on in St. Louis who's focused on doing something interesting and new and clearly wants to make money? He's making a big pitch to advertisers. Like, I'm so happy for the people that are involved in that.
Hold on a minute. Let me do something here quick.
Oh, God.
What are you going? Oh, God.
Brad, I got to go at 8, so let's keep this to a minute.
He won't answer. You wait.
Oh, God. Are you calling him?
Yes, I am. You got 30 more seconds. I know it's going to go to voicemail.
Let's go. Come on. Let's let it play.
It's going to go to voicemail. I have to leave voicemail.
Your call has been forwarded to
go.
voicemail.
Here.
The person
we
you're
don't
trying
need-
to reach
let's not
is not
amend- let's not
available.
leave a
At the
message,
tone,
Brad.
please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Hey, Dave, Brad Hildebrand. I'm on the air right now live with John Combest. Congratulations on the new station. We want to know if we can be part of the lineup. The BJ show would be great on your new station. You call me back at 314-280-8880. Thanks, Dave. Bye. Okay, John. See, I don't let the grass grow underneath my feet. I jump.
There we go.
I'm not
and
like.
there goes my chance of ever working for Dave Green. All right, I got to run, Brad.
I'm not like the FEMA guys who,
There you
when
go,
there's a
Brad.
tornado
All right.
coming 4 days later, I get
There we
right to
go.
business, John.
That's good. There we go. Let's wrap it up.